And welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. I am your host, Officer Antoine Thomas. Yep, that's me. Like to do that. Listen, I did a great show the other day, sitting around the big box store Target. We talked about, and I'm going to do another episode to that. I believe it'll be a one and a two punch, as we say. Talked about Target, and as you know, this show is centered around policing. We talk about the good and the bad of policing. We were never defund the police. We'll always defend the police, talk about the good and the bad of policing. Why Target? I wanted to find out. I got an article that was sent to me via one of the outlets that I follow, Independent Journal report, and they talked about a couple of their box store closures were closing with Target that at that time there was three stores, and that spunked and sparked my interest to find out what's going on with Target. It was due to the high theft and the crimes that are taking place, and we sit all around the country with different stores, mom and pops and big stores, but Target was targeted, with no pun intended, with this huge influx of theft. So I wanted to figure out how that was and why was it, and I had an idea because they decided to join the defund the police movement, and so it sparked my interest to find out how long Target has been on this campaign. But found out early on in the game that Target actually was one of the biggest supporters of policing, and they used to give tons of donations to police departments around this country. So go back and watch that episode. It was titled "When You Target, When You Go Woke, You Go Broke." The original title was Target Has Not Always Defunded the Police. So, anyways, go check that out. Great episode. Got another episode coming. I've had people tell me they didn't know that about Target. I didn't know it at the time. But again, I like to do research and find out what I'm going to talk about and really make sure my facts are there. So we'll continue that. But I want to take a break as we are in campaign season, campaign mode, as we get ready to launch our campaign and our votes on March. And the primary is March 5th as it pertains to our presidential race, all the way to local and state races. And as you can see, I have a man sitting before us today. Some of you may know him, and others will know him after this. He is a pastor. I'm gonna let him build his own platform, but I do, or his biography. But I do want to say that he is a pastor, and he is a boisterous man who is a Republican who's speaking not just from a political standpoint, but from a biblical standpoint on where our world is going and where we should be going, and how he can help turn this around. He is running for the bid of lieutenant governor here in our great state of North Carolina. His name is Allen Mashburn. I want to welcome him to Real Talk Podcast. At times you may hear me call him pastor or even refer to him as a candidate, but I do want to give him his proper respect and his proper title. Pastor Mashburn, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, Alan. To be fine. You and our good friends, and as close as you and Zach are, you're considered family. So you can call me anything you like. Just don't call me late for supper.
I
I
won't
didn't
do it.
know that about Target. You reap what you sow. The
That's
scripture is
correct.
correct.
That's correct.
So you go woke, you go broke. You asked for it, you got it. So serves them right.
I love it. Hey, let's just end the platform here. You've already said enough. Guys, go out and vote for Alan Mashburn. Listen, no, I didn't know that either. And we know how woke Target is. And I talked about very briefly one day in the episode. It wasn't even centered around Target, but you're 100% right. You saw that a few months ago, Pastor, when
Yeah.
they were in the headlines for the LGBTQ plus A, with all the titles they have and letters, that they took a stance on that. But I wanted to find out what was the deal, because we understood they wanted to defund the police, but I found out some facts that they actually was a big proponent to uplift the police, and I'm going to dive more into that because I want to talk about specifically not really focusing on the George Floyd and Officer Derek Chauvin, but actually that's tied into that. Believe it or not, Minneapolis is where the headquarters is located for Target, and I wanted to find out during the heart of those riots why did BLM target the Target store so heavily, and do my research. I figured out because the citizens of that city pretty much said that Target was on the side of Minneapolis police, and they wanted to make sure they tear it all down, and they did tear it down. They burnt it down, not completely to the ground, but they burnt that store. You saw some of the videos that was taking place live at the height of the George Floyd's riots. But they went into that specific Target, and they really did a number on it. Since then, Target has rebuilt it. Actually, centered around the George Floyd memorial. Believe it or not, they have paintings of him on the side of the building. I'm going to talk about that later on down the road. Again, this show is not centered around George Floyd, but Pastor, you're right. When you reap what you sow, it always has to come back to you. And it's unfortunate Target took that stand. They should have just stayed out of it altogether. But that's not why we're here. But I do want to tell all the citizens of North Carolina and all the ones that are listening around the country that Pastor Mashburn has took a huge stand, and he could have just stayed where he was and been a pastor and influencing his congregation, or as we call it, parishioners. But he saw a bigger need, and I'm going to let him dive into that. But Pastor Mashburn, tell the audience exactly who you are.
Well, my name is Allen Mashburn. I'm a pastor. I'm a father. I'm a patriot. I'm a member. I'm a citizen of the United States. And I just could not sit still any longer, and see what was happening to our country and our state in particular. So, over 3 years ago, how I got into this. Over 3 years ago, we started a podcast, and we started reading the books, the inappropriate books, the pornographic books that's in the libraries of our public schools, and we were banned off of YouTube because of it. We were censored on all social media because of it. But yet, it's okay to put all the filth in front of our students. So that's what propelled me to get involved. I wish I was. I've always been engaged. I've always paid attention. I've always voted. I've always encouraged our people in our churches that we've served to be registered to vote, to be engaged citizens, to be that salt and light. But I've never been involved to this level, obviously. But it was time. We were getting a platform, and we decided we were going to influence school boards across as much as we could across the state. So 2 years ago, in November, we launched out and tried to help people running for school board, and we endorsed 31 candidates, and we saw 27 elected. So we know how to win. We know how to change the trajectory. And Moore County is my home county. We started with that county, highlighting things going on in that particular county because it has a place near in my heart, because that's where I still have family there, still have land there. I grew up there. And just this past week, that journey has come full circle, because we've seen a flipped school board from liberal to conservative, and now finally they have removed 4 books out of that school district that we have highlighted and fought for and progged and prodded them to take out. And finally, we have a school board that has courage enough to do that. And that needs to work all over the state. And what it takes is courage. We have to have courage. Courage is contagious. Unfortunately, we saw in COVID, fear is contagious. And if God's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So that courage is contagious. And I make emphasis on sound mind, because when we have people who are in leadership with a corrupt, evil mind, they are dragging down all of us. They are taking us down the wrong road. They are okay with our children being involved in this pornography and this inappropriateness. The first thing that we hit, I put out congratulatory remarks on Twitter. We have a pretty good Twitter following, and all the leftists and the liberals are now attacking me, and now in turn they're attacking Moore County. But hey, we're in it for the long haul. America is still worth fighting for. Mm-hmm. And just like you take a stand every day for the men and women in blue, they are worth fighting for. And if we don't fight for them, they don't have a voice. So in me running for lieutenant governor, I want to be that people's lobbyist, because you go to Raleigh, and I've been to Raleigh probably 12 or 13 times in the last year for various causes, women's sports, abortion, Parents' Bill of Rights, whatever. You go to Raleigh, there's lobbyists in Raleigh and Washington, D.C. for every group under the sun. There may be a lobbyist up there for unicorns. I'm not sure. But there's a lobbyist for everything except the people. Now, the legislators should be the people's lobbyists, and many of them are good. We have good legislators. Not saying we don't, but I think the point I'm trying to get across is you go to Raleigh or you go to Washington, you see the real evil. There are evil forces in state capitals and our nation's capitals that just seek to destroy our civil government. Why? Because God created civil government. Why do you guys on the front line, men and women in the uniform on the front line, suffer so much? It's because you're a part and represent that civil government that God created. And you are in the firing line of the evil that's coming directly against us every day. So in our church, particular, and all churches should do this, many churches I know do this. But in our church, we pray consistently every service. We pray for our men and women in uniform in the military and in law enforcement, our first responders, because you guys are on the front line and you're protecting us. So, just trying to segue that back to the evil that we're facing. You guys do that because we certainly don't pay you enough. We certainly can't pay you for what you're worth, but you do it because I think many of you feel like you have a calling toward that. And my hat's off to you. And I think we have to hold everyone up in prayer who are willing to actually stand in that gap and take those fiery darts, those fiery spiritual darts that come after you. So, my run for lieutenant governor is not for political aspirations. It's to stand in the gap and to stand for the next generation and to say, whatever's coming down from the federal government or whatever's coming over from California, what used to take 20 years to get here, now it takes 20 minutes. Whatever's coming, our state and local leaders have to be those first responders to say, no, we're not doing that here. No, we won't allow that to happen here for our children, for our future. Yes, we will always back our men and women in uniform. We will always fund our police because without it, you have havoc, you have chaos, you have lawlessness. The very thing that you've described in Target, and targets all over the nation, specifically in Pennsylvania.
100%, and we appreciate those prayers. Continue to do that. I did an opening show when I launched this podcast back in 21. The first episode was becoming a police officer is a calling, and from your spiritual background and your political and your biblical background, I 100% agree with you. We do this job thankfully, but we have a lot of people like yourself who promote and support, and we appreciate it. And it's my job. I have an obligation, like I said in that opening show, that I have an obligation not only as an American but as a black police officer, because we see that the left is spinning this thing to be that white police officers are killing black unarmed men at a high rate, which we know that's not true. And so that's what launched this podcast. And I'm out here to tell the truth. Like you stated, your platform is not based on you want to be in the mansion or even just being a part of this political movement for self gain. You do it because it is an obligation, and God's called you to do
Yeah,
it. I
we're
appreciate it.
t- yeah, we're tired of career politicians. We're tired of people who just want to mooch off the system and make a salary every year, but they come home and retire and they're multimillionaires. That just doesn't add up. So we're tired of that. We, the people, we have a constitution, and that constitution is what's called legally a negative document. What that means is it is empowering the people, but yet restraining the government. To the government, it is a negative document. This is the farthest you can go, and right there it stops. And so we've lost that in this country, and a lot of it's coming down through our educational system. I guarantee you, Target, what changed their direction as far as police? One, they cowered in fear. They decided to say, well, we're going to follow the culture and just go against police. But I guarantee you, it stemmed from a DEI director that eventually came from a Marxist who said, this is not proper. This is not good for our culture. This is not good for our image. We need to change that. Here's where the culture is going, and we'll gain more support if we'll do this. Well, that DEI, which I call it DIE because DEI needs to die, is nothing more but Marxism in all the three-letter acronyms.
You're 100%, and you're spot on with it. They hired a gentleman years ago that was part of the makeup of that to revamp their system.
Hmm.
Target did, and that is how all this came about. You are right on top of what we're going to dive into on the next episodes of that particular title, and so you're spot on with it. So I thank you for being courageous, and your platform says being bold, and I'm going to let you talk more about it. I had an opportunity to listen to you in person on last weekend at Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's campaign for governor. Did an awesome job. He did an awesome job, and you told us on the way out that we need to be bold. We need to be bold. We need to be bold. And that is what you're doing, and that's what you have done. And so I want to say for those, and I didn't mention this, but if you remember his father, Allen Mashburn, just mentioned Zach. Zach and I are good friends. Zach is his son, and you know that Zach came on two occasions, and what we talked about was that there was some still patriotic, good Gen Zs left, and Zach
Yeah.
is leading that pack. He's leading that platform and that campaign to be a generation of young Zs who are making a difference or who wants to be a help and not a hindrance to this country. And so I appreciate that. And so now you're seeing it and you're hearing it from the man who helped build all of that for Zach, his father, Allen Mashburn. We appreciate you. Zach's a great young man. I'm glad to have met him at our state convention on last year, and we have garnered a brotherhood and friendship. And so it says good things to you and your wife, which I talked about that on that show, gave you props. But
Well, everyone knows Antoine in our household, so you get talked about quite a bit. We say, "Where's Zach?" Well, he's on the phone with Antoine, so we know exactly. So when I say you're like one of the family, it's true.
and I believe it, and I'm proud to be. You all are a part of my family. What I want to do, I want to segue into this, and so you heard that he's a wonderful pastor, preaches the gospel. If you're ever in the area, please visit his church. What's the name of your church, Pastor?
We're in Asbury Baptist Church in Seagrove, and we're right by the interstate. You can't miss it. But we're in the little town of Seagrove, right below Ashboro.
Beautiful. I look forward to someday getting out there and visiting as well. But I want to segue into the heart and the meat of this. You were running for lieutenant governor. You told us why. You actually decided, you and your wife, to homeschool your children. And
Yes.
so that one would say, well, why did he even cares? Or not only that, why does he even fight the way he does, knowing that he doesn't have any kids in the public school system? But you feel that strong about that, and that is part of the makeup of the lieutenant's governors. One of their duties, one of the main duties, and I'll let you dive into that. But what I want to do is segue into this thing and talk about where you are going with your campaign and where you stand right now as we speak. And so this is a fluid conversation. I don't have many questions for you at all because I want to give you time just to talk about whatever you want to talk about
Sure.
centered around your campaign. So I'll let you
Well,
take the floor.
we do homeschool our children. Our children started out in public school. My wife is a state certified teacher. She's taught in public and private, so she's more than qualified to do what she needs to do. And that's not necessary in North Carolina to homeschool. You just have to have a desire and have a curriculum and do that. But it was a joint decision, and of course, it couldn't happen without her because she was her time would be dedicated to that. Uh, some might ask the question, well, why are you so concerned? Well, if you're a homeschooler, and by the way, I think we have over 100,000 homeschool students, and that's growing daily in this state. Every session of the House and Senate, every year, there are Democrats who file bills to have more and more and more oversight over homeschoolers. So the homeschoolers, uh, I won't say they're governed, but the records are kept inside the Department of Public Instruction under non-public education. That is the department that was started. In fact, it was started by a Democratic governor, Jim Hunt, and so he found great value in that. And we have grown in homeschoolers every year. Now, to make sure that the homeschoolers, well, let me say it like this, to make sure that parents, because I believe that parents do not have to or should never have to co parent with the government in anything, shape, or form. God has entrusted those children to you as a parent, and it is up to me as a parent to decide what is best for them educationally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever. So that freedom is given to us by the Constitution, which we believe is inalienable. What does inalienable mean? Well, it means that it cannot or should never be taken away by a government or an entity. So I never thought that we would be here in America where we actually have to talk about this, have this conversation, that we actually have to be proactive in making sure that parents actually maintain their rights.
Mm.
So it is important, it behooves us to make sure that we have people with principle. You know, it's not about Republican and Democrat anymore, it's about people with principle. You can say what you are. The most misused term in the world today is Christian. Everybody claims to be one, but you're not a Christian unless you actually are possessed by Christ. Let me say that again, because the world has a different definition of possession. When I come to Christ, I give my heart, my life to Christ, and He comes into me in the form of the Holy Spirit, and thus I become a child of God. So here's the point, that when I am a Christian, I have a worldview that I consider everything in my life in the worldview of the Word of God. So the Bible details to me that children are, number one, a gift. They are a gift from God. Number two, they are the next generation. And the next generation for us to train up a child in the way they should go. And when they're old, they won't depart.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that can be applied all down through the ages of our country and our state. Folks, here's the point. I don't want any parents across the board, whether you decide to homeschool, whether you decide to send your child to public education, your children belong to you. We do not co parent with anyone, no one. And it should be imperative that we place people in office to make sure that we never lose that right. It should not even be up for discussion, because the government has no place in our business, has no place in our homes, has no place in our families. So you can claim to be anything you want, uh, but we must have individuals who are principled, who have walked the walk, not only talk the talk, but demonstrate that they are, in fact, conservative, that they are, in fact, people who believe and adhere and admonish the Constitution, the sacred documents of our land. We're losing that. And if we don't be the bold people for the next generation, why do we use the terminology be bold? Well, it's because the left is coming at us so bold, so blatantly. We cannot afford to just abide by and just say, "Oh well, we'll do our best, and we're just going to go this way and let them direct the narrative." No, we can set the narrative, because we can be bold and we can meet that opposition and say, "Absolutely not. We will not allow that in our state. We will not allow that in our country. We're going to raise our children, and we're going to stand tall. We're going to be a people that put God first. We're going to be a people that elect people that honor the Constitution, that stand for God." Now, doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian or a certain denomination. I prefer Christian in government, But it doesn't mean you have to have a denomination or anything to be a certain place in government. What it means is that you place the Constitution and the moral compass of our Judeo Christian ethics that this country has been founded on and has lasted these many decades and centuries. And we continue on that. It is not our place to indoctrinate, it is our place to guide, it is our place to educate, and to offer our best for our children. When we have books and literature and we have drag queens reading stories in public schools, that is completely horrendous. That is not our best. That is our worst. And we can give our children our best. I believe in making America great again. If we want to make America great again, we're going to have to do the things that made America great to start with. And that means turning our public educational system back into an academic institution and not an indoctrination camp. So the lieutenant governor sits on the state board of education. He sits on the state board of community colleges. He's the president of the Senate. He has a bully pulpit. I've coined the term that I want to be the people's lobbyist. You know, if we have a Governor Mark Robinson, he's going to be running the state, and I'm going to be back and forth to people all over the state saying, hey, here's what's coming up at the state house. Here's what your voice can do. Call your legislators, write them, be engaged. The reason why we are where we are in our country is because we've taken our hand off the wheel, and we've let politicians take it, and they have sold out their souls to Satan, sold out their souls to corporations, to lobbyists, to money. And folks, we have got to get a hold on this again. We've got to be engaged citizens again and take this country. Too many veterans have died on the battlefields of all over the world for our freedom, for us not to stand up and take this country back internally. We can do that. And when we do that, it helps the men and women in blue, because we make sure that we have DAs who are willing to prosecute those crimes that our officers are going out there and arresting and putting their lives on the line every single day. We need to make sure we have judges who are willing to actually judge from the bench based upon the law, not legislate from the bench. So, to make this work, we all have a part. The legal system have to do their job. The DAs, the judges all have to work together with the law enforcement. But, you know, if we as the citizenry, if we're not engaged in doing our job and holding our leaders accountable in Washington and in Raleigh and in our local governments in every county, it is not going to work. Evil will seep in and it will destroy us if we do not remain vigilant.
I love that. I love that. Tell us about your platform. What are you planning on doing as the lieutenant governor outside of those roles that you mentioned just now and the things you plan on doing? What are you going to really be targeting and centering your after you win the campaign
Well,
this season?
that's a loaded question. I do want to steer everyone to our website, allenfornc.com. And on there, we've got the 23-page document that we're the only candidate that has put this out. We call it the contract with North Carolina. It's akin to what Newt Gingrich did when they took over the House in the mid 90s, contract with America. So what I do is I go back and I go through the roles of the lieutenant governor and the committees he serves on and the roles that he serves in. And I try to define them according to statute. And then I try to put in there where we're going to go as far as administration. So I mentioned the president of the Senate. President Senate has influence. So I want to influence and make sure that we have the legislation in place to protect our students, to protect our teachers, to make sure that we have the protection there for the law enforcement is fully funded around our schools and our counties. We want to make sure that our people are protected. So we need to make sure the boots on the ground have everything they need to do their job. Then we need to make sure that the State Board of Education is manned, and we have a good, strong influence there. as is now, the State Board of Education needs to be revamped. Let me unpack that a little bit. A lot of people don't realize, but the State Board of Education, those terms are appointed by the governor, many of them, and they're 8-year terms. 8 years is a long time. It's a long time to influence, especially if you have the wrong person in there pushing a wrong agenda and not an academic, scholastic agenda. So the legislature is really going to have to get involved in the future, in which I understand they're putting forth a bill very soon that's going to do that. I don't know the specifics of it, but I'll be involved on it. You can bet your life on that. But those 8-year terms overlap an incoming governor. So a new governor comes in doesn't mean that we get a new board at all. So the legislature is going to have to revamp that and make those 4-year terms, 2-year terms, or the other option is going to be make those positions electable by we the people. That's on the table now, and should certainly be considered, because then we all would have an option in saying who serves on the State Board of Education. But by statute, the lieutenant governor and the state treasurer sit on that board, as well as the superintendent of DPI. So we need to make sure that we have a people's advocate on there, even when we do have a good, strong conservative board. We need to make sure we have someone on there that is willing to unbiasedly walk out to the public and tell them what's going on. That will be the role of lieutenant governor as well. For 12 years earlier in my life, I was a welder. So the trades are very important to me. I've made several stops and visits to community colleges, and community colleges are really near and dear to my heart, because they push the trades, they adhere to the community. Whatever the community needs, they try to adhere to it. I know I was down at Cape Fear Community College in Wilmington, and the president down there said we had a need 16 or 18 months ago for HVAC workers. So we ramped up our HVAC program and gave the contractors exactly what they needed. And uh, there are community colleges out there that's just doing a tremendous job in that role. And we have colleges in the state college system, the university system, like UNC, that is the bedrock of Marxism in many ways. That I would not be opposed at all to defund until they got the point that we will not tolerate your Marxism in poisoning the minds of our young people. And so you need to teach academics, and that's it. Look at everything objectively, teach the role, teach the subject, and move on. Again, make America great again, do the things that made America great to start with. So, those are just the type of role that's part of my platform. The things that I don't really have a direct influence in, that is very important to me, that I do have a little bit of influence as lieutenant governor, is the fentanyl crisis, and then human trafficking. Unfortunately, we are number 7 in the nation for human trafficking. And what I would love to see a joint task force uh, set up for those two hot items there, those two crimes, and just give them every power we can constitutionally, statewide, and have them cooperate with the Homeland Security and with ICE. Bring in 287G again, which is a memorandum of understanding of local agencies, where literally an officer in your district is deputized both in the county and with ICE. And so that person is able to, they find someone who's here illegally, they immediately detain them and send them back or deport them back wherever. We have got to strengthen that. Why? Because we have an open border, which makes every state a border state, and that has we attribute the influx and the explosion of the fentanyl crisis. We attribute that human trafficking to that. Back in November, I was speaking. I was invited to speak. It was a great honor. I was invited to speak at Trump National in D.C. with Tom Holman, the former ICE director. I was on the same platform with him, as well as General Flynn, as well as Attorney General Paxton from Texas. And Tom Holman told me then, and that was back in November. He told me then, he said at that time there were over 600,000 gotaways that we have no idea where they're at. That number has grown exponentially now. And he also told me that these are not Hispanics. Someone asked me the question about immigration the other day. These are not Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
These people coming in, flooding in, invading our country. He told me, and I trust his judgment. I trust his metrics way beyond mine because he's in the know. 109 nationalities are represented of the influx of people coming in our country that are assimilating and disappearing. We don't know where they're at. Here's the fear, and I've talked to a lot of county sheriffs in this campaign. Here's the fear. County sheriffs have the fear that we're going to see something that happened actually in Israel. That people were there, they assimilated, they disappeared, and then all of a sudden they reared their ugly head into destruction. And our local sheriff's offices and city police, they're just not going to be equipped for that type of destruction. God forbid. That's what we do not want. But that's what we're in for if we do not close that stinking border. And if we do not have a massive deportation under President Trump and get these people who they're illegal. They're illegally here. They're not here trying to make a better life. They're here trying to seek harm or spread and traffic drugs or whatever. Hey, if you want to come in this country, there is a process. Get in line. You can come here. We welcome over 1 million uh, immigrants in this country legally every year. There's not one person who will say one harm word about the legal process. You're welcome to come here. You're welcome to start a new life for your family. Do it the legal way. You come here illegally, you are in violation of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, remember, the Democrats said no one is above the law. So we must stand against this felonious thinking that we're seeing from the left, and they don't see a problem. But I see a problem, and it's going to be a problem that we have to deal with on the state and local level more so than anything. And we have no idea. We have no idea what's coming. God forbid we ever see it. But if we do, we have to be ready, and we have to do what's necessary to protect our families.
Well said. You're 100% right. And we know we can talk for hours about our crisis at the border that we have coined the phrase, and that's what it is. And none of us sitting before all these great people that are listening to this show are biased, racist, or discriminatory. We understand how that looks, and it's not good. And I can tell you from a law enforcement standpoint, Allen Mashburn, Candidate Mashburn, Pastor Mashburn, you are on target with what is going on. It's unfortunate, but there is a bill that is introduced now in the House. I know you're aware because you stay abreast of what's going on in our state House. HB 10. It's going to be that's going to be the name of that particular bill, and they're going to which. Preferably, we know it'll be vetoed under this administration, but the supermajority that we have is going to go forward. That's going to ask all 100 sheriffs to participate back in cooperation with criminals who come into our penal system arrested by our
Yes.
local law enforcement and state. They're going to go through and they're going to cooperate with ICE. It's not going to be a suggestion. It's going to be a mandate. And that's the only way we can kind of equip our state to handle all this. And so I appreciate you for standing that fight, and that is some of the things that candidate Mashburn is going to do outside of his main roles as lieutenant governor. You heard it first. As we get ready to wrap up, candidate Mashburn, you said so much, and I hope that the audience will have time to dissect everything you said and understand you're coming from a good place and a good heart. Again, you don't have to do this, but you're doing it to take on all the verbal abuse that you have already encountered and continue to encounter, but you have a mandate. And so I want you to leave the citizens of North Carolina, by all the viewers who will be able to vote for you in this upcoming election. Why should they vote for you? I'll let that be our last term and then let you have the departing words and we'll move on. Why should one vote for you after what all they heard? What can you leave them with that will say, listen, if you didn't listen to nothing I said, understand why you should allow me to have your vote?
Well, I think we all can be on the same page and say that we're tired of politics as usual. We are not living in the 80s and 90s where President Reagan and Tip O'Neill had a cordial relationship, and the Democrats and the Republicans fought. It's not about that anymore. It's good versus evil. We have to have people of discernment. We have to have people in leadership with principled uh, convictions. And I settled my convictions a long time ago. In being in ministry over 30 years, being in business, a former business owner, I've signed the front of a check and the back of a check. So I know what small businesses have to go through. Um, I've not been in the political process in elected office. I'm not owned by anybody, nor can I be bought. I've had that before. I tried to as well. But, I think as a father and a pastor and as an American that really sees what is happening, I'm not, my judgment is not clouded. My view is not clouded by it's not so bad, or we'll make it better, or we'll just catch it at the next election. No, I see that if we don't get this right in 2024, we're not going to have a country. We're not going to have a state. We're not going to have the way of our life is going to change as we know it. We're going to lose this country. And I think a politician would say that they'll say anything they have to get elected, to get votes, but folks, I see it and I'm willing to do anything I can to stop it. Yes, I could do anything else. I've been on shows, I've been on national radio, national shows. I mean, the opportunity to do something else is there. Um, but this is what I feel like I'm called to do, to take a stand, to stand from the next generation, to stand for my children, and I could have a much easier life if I didn't do this. So I'm not saying I'm anywhere near like President Trump, but I will say this: I am like President Trump in one regard. You can't buy me. I don't want what you've got. I just want my country. I just want my freedom. I just want my children to have a future. They're not going to have the Andy Griffith Show future that we did. We didn't have all of it, but we had a good time growing up. America's never been perfect, but it's been darn near close compared to the rest of the world. But here's the thing: I want my children to have the decision making ability to do anything they want to do in their lives. I want them to have that liberty. I don't want them to be encumbered by pricing or load of debt. I just want them to have opportunity. And if we don't stand up right now and do that, and yes, be bold, we use that for a reason. Sometimes we get loud, sometimes we get really bold, but it doesn't mean that we're unreasonable. It's just the fact that we will not compromise on our constitutional rights. We're not giving up any ground. We're not losing any more ground. It's time to advance. It's time to take back this country. It's time to stand on the Constitution and say enough is enough. You've had your lot. Your time is over. It's law and order, and it's back to stay.
I love it. Listen, this is just a glimpse of Our candidate Mashburn, you have to see him in person when he comes to a venue near you, because guess what? It gets more loud and bold, like you stated, not unreasonable, but it gets loud and bold so that you can understand the heart and where all this is coming from. I appreciate you for coming on to this show. And before we exit out of here, how can we, as citizens, help in your fight?
Well, you can follow us on our website, allenfornc.com. You can also give to our campaign there and donate. Um, Follow us on social media. Twitter is Mashburn4NC, and that same handle is used on Facebook as well. I think on Instagram it is allen.mashburn. So we're all over the social media, and Zach handles a lot of that. Lexi handles a lot of that. We've been told we dominate social media. That's a good terminology we like. We want to do that because that's where a lot of voters are. That's where a lot of people get their news, unfortunately, in some cases. But we want to make sure that everyone sees our heart and sees our passion. Because if you don't have passion for your country and it doesn't bleed through your speech and your speaking, and people can't see that, you don't need to be in a race. You certainly don't need to be running for office. We need to have passionate, principled people in this time. We like to say boldness, be bold in a time that demands nothing less.
I love it. I love it. Listen, every listener on Real Talk, you have heard from candidate Allen Mashburn. Please go and support him if you like what he's saying. Stay abreast of all those social media outlets that he's mentioned to you. And great prayers and great success to you, to all the Real Talk audience. I have some more great candidates coming your way. We do have some other ones that's going to be talking about their state races. All the way from their local government races. So we have some more great people coming on. Pastor Mashburn, you are the first candidate to grace the stage in 24 as it pertains to the platform of Real Talk. And I really had what I want to say there. I really wanted to make an emphasis on that. I wanted you to be the first person to segue this candidacy as it pertains to other interviews. So that's really personal to me. I told your opponent how Mashburn campaign. I made it very clear to them. I said we're going to have you on, but I'm bringing Alan Mashburn on first. I am a fair man, and what you see is what you get. And I believe in giving everybody opportunity because that's what we spout here in America, the land of opportunity. I appreciate you. And Alan, again, Pastor Mashburn, look forward to hearing more about the campaign and see the progression. And Zach going to keep me in the loop, and I'm watching. And so until then, I'll let you get back to your daily, and God bless you. And we will talk very soon. Until next episode of Real Talk, I am your host, Officer Antoine. You have been listening to the Real Talk. Alan Mashburn running for State Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina. And as I always say on the show, reach one, teach one. Until next time, we continue to pray for our men and women that are serving in blue, and of course, our great military that is definitely in the fight with the Israel and Hamas and the Houthis and all those Palestinian, all the bad folks that are trying to wreak havoc on that country. And we still continue to pray for them. And so until next time, we'll see you. You have been listening to Real Talk.